Welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. On the 21st of December, the People's Anti-Fascist Front claimed it had attacked an Indian Army convoy. Now, the People's Anti-Fascist Front is a thinly disguised alibi for the Jaish-e-Mohammed. It's the 8th such attack in Jammu in the last 2 years. And beyond this attack and Pakistan's sponsorship of terrorism is the Pakistan Army itself, which continues to inveigle itself to Washington. Joining me to discuss this latest attack in Jammu is Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry, Dr. Ajit Singh from the Institute of Conflict Management, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. General Kulkarni, I want to start by asking you this new pattern of attacks south of the Pir Panjal. What's the new game plan that the terrorist groups in the valley and their handlers across the border have for our security forces?
You know, of late, what has been noticed is that south of Pir Panjal, the activities seem to have gone up much more, primarily because they are not finding much of headway in the valley itself. Under those circumstances, primarily due to the proximity of Rajouri and Poonch to the LOC, number of infiltration routes, the forested area, the area which is full of caves, difficult terrain conditions, very limited means of communication, resulting in they wanting to have a little bit of a better foothold. They're managing it in this area. Much that they will not last very long, but notwithstanding that, there are numerous places where ambushes can take place because of the difficult terrain. Having said that, we know, the security forces know that these are all the limitations under which they're operating, and therefore vigilance ought to be much, much higher. There is no denying the fact. Use all means, be it helicopters, be it drones, keep monitoring the communication of these militants, and a sizable number of them who were in the launch pad seem to have now been allowed to infiltrate, presuming that even if 20-30% of the militants die, they still can replenish them from the number of the hideouts that they had, and also the various points where these militants are now particularly placed on their side of the LOC. It is in this context, and wanting to keep militancy alive, wanting to have the hybrid warfare go, a mix of Pakistan, China, help obviously through the ISI to all these militant groups, and a sizable number of people also, the locals themselves, also seem to be now conniving with this kind of an air. Otherwise, it's virtually impossible to be able to operate even for the militants, because much that you may have certain areas through which you can dominate, you can have long-range vision, but at all times, especially this kind of an ambush, one that took place in September also, the ambush that had taken place then, even October one we saw one in November also. This complete thing, the aim is that if the Indians find that they have succeeded in normalizing the situation in Kashmir, what lay dormant as part of south of Pir Panjal for virtually decades over, reactivated. Some part of the troops having been reorganized, and a certain amount of thinning out was done, but that really doesn't affect much, because all that thinning out has subsequently been made up also.
Right.
There is a definite need, a challenge which we have to look up to and ensure that we do not suffer these casualties, because the enemy, we've said Pakistan is the enemy. Pakistan is sponsoring terrorism. Pakistan is the hub of terrorism. All of it is known. So that they are behaving the way they should behave. If they are changing their tactics, we also now need to change our tactics and ensure that there is no question of getting ambushed, and our vigilance, surveillance has to go up. We have to have good human intelligence and also technological intelligence.
Yeah. Right. Aditya, Thursday's attack, it points to a shift in the strategy, as General Kulkarni pointed, that it's now south of the Pir Panjal range, and over the couple of months also we've seen more attacks in the rural parts, the wooded areas, the hilly parts, inaccessible areas, as opposed to urban areas, which was where militancy was largely focused on. Tell us how much of a challenge it is for the security forces now, and the other point that General Kulkarni mentioned, local support.
Well, it's a mighty challenge. He explained it very well. He has had the experience down on ground to deal with such kind of threats and challenges. I would say this is not a recent threat. You know, if you study the pattern over the last 3 years, you would see that at least 8 to 10 attacks have taken place in this area. When I speak about this area, I mentioned the Poonch Rajouri belt, and there are high number of casualties, close to 40 casualties that have happened across this region. What the terrorists are really doing, one, Pakistan's game plan of shifting the terror activities from Kashmir to the south of the Pir Panjal in this entire area, Rajouri-Poonch, Kishtwar, etc. Target security forces, lay ambush, because most of these attacks are basically ambush attacks on a convoy or a lone truck that is heading in that area. In this particular case, on Thursday in the afternoon, there was a convoy, we are told, which was attacked. A truck and a gypsy that came under attack. Subsequently, we have seen photographs and videos of blood, all across that gypsy, all the window panes being broken completely. And unfortunately, 4 casualties of Indian soldiers from the Indian Army and 3 injuries as well. This clearly indicates that there's a new pattern, a new strategy that has been developed where a sizable number of terrorists are laying an ambush after a deep study, a deep recce of that entire area for days together. And I would presume that this is not a fresh infiltration that has taken place. Perhaps for the last many weeks, these terrorists would have been there hiding in caves or getting the local support as well. Largely the OGWs that have been there. And again, the OGWs in this particular area have been there for a very long time. They've been trying to smuggle terrorists from Jammu to Kashmir, weapons as well, continuously. A lot of trucks where encounters have taken place on intelligence-based inputs have also been there. So I think this is a renewed threat where our focus has been entirely on Kashmir, but this is a new area of threat that is emerging, and I think we'll have to deal with this very seriously on intelligence-based operations. And the second threat is the local population also. In the last 1 year, we have seen the minority population that is being targeted in this area as well, which is again a mighty challenge, because you see that people have lived in harmony all across the LOC in this particular area, but the Hindu community in Poonch, Rajouri and Kishtwar in particular has been unfortunately attacked by the same terrorists, trying to imbalance the communal harmony in that particular area. So apart from that, and of course, I think there's been a sizable movement of the troops that has happened from south of Pir Panjal to Ladakh. That has been replenished as well. But it seems that there's a deeper recalibration of strategy of counterterrorism that needs to be done south of Pir Panjal.
Dr. Singh, I want to bring you in at this point. How does this complicate our security grid? The fact that now, as Aditya and General Kulkarni mentioned, the weight of the attacks has shifted south of the Pir Panjal, right? That's an area that we thought we were very secure. And now with these renewed attacks, these hit and run attacks on convoys in wooded areas, how does that complicate our security grid, which we thought was pretty rigid and solid over the last couple of years?
We have to remember one thing, that these incidents are of similar nature. In the last 2 years or 3 years, what have been happening of the similar nature. And the security forces must learn from their mistakes, because there is nothing new in attacks which have happened in the last year or so. It is like the security forces are going for an operation, they are taken by surprise. But why are they are getting taken by surprise? We must try to understand that. As far as change of technology techniques are concerned, yes, Pakistan will keep changing. For some time, it will start targeting the outsiders. For some time, it will start targeting the minorities. For sometimes, because it has to keep the terrorism alive in Kashmir. And when we talk about Kashmir or Kashmir Valley and Jammu, because there are 22 districts and only 10 to 12 districts are terror infested. And for some time, the focus is on Kashmir Valley. For some time, it shifts. It is like, if we see, even in the recent times, Poonch is more or less largely peaceful. Just one attack in 2023. No civilian fatality. When we talk about the attacks on minorities, there are no such reports that attacks on minorities are happening in this division. There was just one attack in January in Rajouri, and it was one lonely attack. It is not that the minorities are being targeted in this sector. There is no such attack in Poonch also. So to bring all these things together, that this sector and the civilians or the minorities are being targeted, or Pakistan has all of a sudden changed it. No, Pakistan will keep changing or this location of its operations, and terrorists will keep moving from one place to another. It is for the security forces to ensure that once you have an hold over one area, you must maintain and try to secure and keep control over that area. Just moving the security forces or to intensify operation in one area and then leaving it open for the terrorists to come back is something which we must try to stop and learn from the mistakes. As far as this latest operation is concerned, again we see the most concerning thing is the combat type of attack. Like the reports are saying that the security forces and the militants fought very closely. It's like mutilated dead bodies have been found. So there are chances, I'm not very sure about that maybe some beta like Pakistani security forces also, because we have seen such operations earlier also in Pakistani security forces in guise of the militants entering, because there have not been so many incidents where there have been combat incidents.
Close combat, that's right.
Yeah. So it is not like happened more often. So it may be that Pakistani security forces have also in the guise of this militants, because what we see that overall militancy in Kashmir has gone down considerably.
Yeah.
In 2023, if we see, it is the lowest number of fatalities recorded in Kashmir since 2012, when militancy was at its lowest, around 121 fatalities.
Yeah.
So the situation has improved considerably. Civilian fatalities is just in double digit, and that to low double digit, 11 civilian fatalities. Out of that, 7 were killed in one attack in Rajouri. Again, the security forces fatalities, despite having to face 4 major attacks in this Poonch Rajouri sector. Overall fatalities, if we see, it is just around 34, less than what we have seen in recent past on an year-on-year basis. Number of militants killed have also gone down. So overall, the security situation has improved, and it will force Pakistan to think again and again. So it is for the security forces and the government and the security establishment overall to think and find out the ways to outsmart Pakistan, because
Right.
Pakistan will keep doing this.
General Kulkarni, recently the 2 most important people in the Pakistan army, General Asim Munir and the DG ISI, Nadeem Anjum, they traveled to Washington and they met all the top officials there, except of course the president and the vice president. But what do you make of this, visit to Washington at a time like this, when Pakistan is, in dire straits as it has been in the last couple of months, and you have this brewing situation in Afghanistan, the forcible expulsion of Afghans back into Afghanistan, refugees, and of course the brewing crisis in Balochistan. What do you make of this visit? How important is it?
At this point of time, in Pakistan was economically shattered, politically turmoil, diplomatically isolated, all kinds of pressure. The world sees Pakistan as a hub of terrorism. Pakistan unabated uses terrorism as an instrument of state policy. The exploitation of Pakistan by China unable to give too much of economic support. China's involvement in Afghanistan to exploit the resources of Afghanistan themselves, Taliban and the Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan in league attacking the security forces in Pakistan. The relevance of Pakistan seems somehow at a point of time when Pakistan has always been controlled by the army, and whether directly or by remote. At this point of time, when Pakistan feels the only way out is to be able to get close to America, because at a point of time it was America, army, and you always had the kind of axis that existed in
Allah, army,
Pakistan.
and America, as they
Allah,
call it.
America, and army. So this axis, suddenly China, probably the relevance of China having increased, but Chinese involvement in Pakistan was not seen in a very good light by the Pakistanis themselves. There
Right.
were, of course, within the security establishment also the feeling that getting too close to China may be dangerous. Then
Yes.
the way Imran Khan has been dealt with in Pakistan. So Pakistan is in total turmoil.
Yeah.
Relevance, Chinese definitely want that Pakistan must continue with its proxy war in India. Pakistan, aware after the Balakot strike that should the threshold be crossed, India will not hesitate to strike Pakistan. So in this particular situation with Afghanistan, China, Pakistan in economic dire strait that it is in, it felt very much essential. And America also at this point of time, what would want to use Pakistan, well, like the way they did in 1970s, that again they used Pakistan again in Afghanistan against Russia. They would much like Pakistan, where they feel a one-point contact, that is the army. And
Right.
that is where the relevance of the Chief of Army Staff
Yeah.
Pakistan comes. Because
Right.
in Pakistan, if whatever it be, America has always felt a one-point contact, the Chief of Army Staff is much better to deal with China or anywhere in South Asia, and
One-
even trying to pressurize India also.
Absolutely.
So that is one of
In
the
fact,
reasons why-
Aditya,
Yeah.
based on what General Kulkarni just said, why is the army back in favor again? And how is it that they're being featured in Washington after that 2-year gap, where, after the fall of the Taliban, of the return of the Taliban in Afghanistan?
I think no lessons are being learned by the Americans. The kind of embarrassment that they faced when the jets left the ground in
Yeah.
Kabul, short-term memory. That's how I look at it. But in Pakistan, just like General Kulkarni mentioned, Pakistan Army is in control, but they don't want to take the responsibility.
Right.
So they will never take the responsibility, especially at a time when there's an economic blackout completely, downfall, a political downfall, of course, and then add to that the security nightmare of the TTP and the new splinter factions that are coming
Right.
up, and the casualties that they are facing both in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa every passing day and in Balochistan. Apart from that, of course, they had this selected Prime Minister Imran Khan, and now it's increasingly becoming clear that Nawaz Sharif will be in power.
Will be
But
another selected Prime Minister.
Another selected Prime Minister, but how much will he listen? Because last time, if you remember, before Imran Khan was the Prime Minister and Nawaz was the PM, there was a continuous conflict underway between the civilian administration and the army.
Yeah.
Nawaz isn't someone who blindly always follows the directions of the army. He is mostly a businessman and tries to operate like a corporate person.
Right.
So it has to be seen how he actually navigates through that entire process. But you're right that it's again, it is the Pakistan Army and Rawalpindi calling the shots, and they are the ones who are leading the diplomatic efforts both in Washington DC or in the Middle East.
That's right. Yeah, that's
having
an
meetings in
interesting
Saudi,
point,
UAE,
actually.
elsewhere.
There, Dr. Singh, I want to bring you here on what Aditya just mentioned. The Pakistan Army seems to be doing everything from, securing loans from Saudi Arabia to doing the diplomacy. And General Munir seems to be effectively the martial law administrator without, calling himself as such. But what credibility do the elections have in that case in February of 2024?
In fact, there is no civilian government ever in Pakistan. For the namesake, they have a civilian government from time to time, but it is the Pakistani military, the deep state, which runs the state. So we may have an election, we may have a so-called free and fair election. Nawaz Sharif may come back, and there will be a civilian government for the namesake, but it will be the military which will be ruling, and there will be no doubt to think. Even there is not an iota of hope. There is no hope at all for anyone to think about that Pakistan will have a civilian government in near future. And Pakistan will break, in fact, if there will be a civilian government, because in that case, it means that Pakistani military will have no say. And without Pakistani military, Pakistan will not run.
Yeah, the army with a country, as they say, of Pakistan. I'm afraid we're totally out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. General Kulkarni, always good to hear from you and my colleague Aditya. Stay tuned for more news and updates on the News9 Plus show. The 193-kilometer Suez Canal was opened in November 1869. It remains the fastest and the most direct maritime trade link between Asia and Europe. Now, approximately 12% of global trade passes through the Suez Canal, and 30% of all global container traffic and over $1 trillion worth of goods per annum flows through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal. Something like 19,000 ships utilize this route. And now you have the Yemen-based Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, who effectively throttled this route. They've completely debarred global shipping from the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. And joining me to discuss this very alarming threat to global shipping is shipping expert Captain Sanjay Prashar, and of course my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. Captain Prashar, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you, Ritan sir.
Well, 4 of the 5 major shipping companies have stopped sailing ships through the Gulf of Aden. When was the last time you saw such a scenario? Such a critical sea lane of communication being shut to global shipping?
I don't remember in my lifetime, because when we last had the issue in the same area near Yemen, surprisingly there was a convoy system. Now
Right.
this time the convoy system is not working.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, Somalian pirates and versus what we see Houthi rebels now,
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely a war-like situation.
Yeah.
And another part of it is that the seafarers
Right.
are asking whether this is high-risk area and whether they have the right to refuse to sail the vessel.
Right.
So I think what is happening is there is a counter pressure from the commercial as well as the people who are going to move the ships.
Yes. And in fact, Aditya, we were discussing this topic with Commodore Kesnur a few shows back, in fact, where he compared it to Somali pirates with RPGs. But this is a whole new level of ballistic missiles and helicopters. Was there, you think, an intelligence failure, the fact that the Western agencies completely missed this Houthi mobilization of anti-ship capabilities?
Of course, no doubts about that, Sandeep, that US has been under considerable pressure
Yeah.
and perhaps exhausted as well. With a war that has been raging for almost now much more than a year with Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And of course now over the last more than 2 months in Israel and Gaza. And of course they have their military presence and shipments all across the world in
Right.
different areas.
Right.
There's been a major lapse in intelligence gathering capabilities because what explains that in the last few weeks itself there have been 12 major attacks
Right.
that have happened on
And
these
in the area of
ships.
CENTCOM, you have Central Command based right there on the Arabian Peninsula, and they completely missed this.
They not only missed it, they reacted late. And now they have started, I think, a protective guardian, an
Yeah.
operation in that entire area to safeguard the entire navigation capabilities there, to provide an umbrella kind of a protection,
Right.
not a vessel-to-vessel protection, but an umbrella protection in that field. But India is also impacted. Many
Yes.
experts say that the oil prices will not rise exponentially,
Right.
although the Tuesday there was a massive rise that
Yeah.
was seen. But they say this is temporary in nature because the production in itself
Right.
has not been impacted. But the rerouting is taking place.
Rerouting is taking place.
To
In
a
fact,
great
I
extent.
want to bring Captain Prashar into this. Captain Prashar, oil shipments may not be affected. As Aditya mentioned, the fact is that our oil flows in from the Persian Gulf. But you have basmati exports from India that go through the Red Sea to Egypt and to Europe. I mean, how could that be impacted by this blockade?
Well, let me tell you that already we are seeing the freight raise from $40,000 to $60,000 per day for the tankers, which is about 2 million barrels,
Right.
And secondly, in the container trade, we are seeing the freight rise in some particular sectors going up to 44%. And
Right.
of course, it was in the pre-COVID or nearly the COVID times that we
Yeah.
had seen something which has never seen in the past with the containers. So when we are talking about the basmati rice movement or any of the exports,
Yeah.
please understand that the number of 1/3 of the world's trade which moves through Suez is impacted, and India is impacted the most. So
Right.
10 days of extra voyage via Cape of Good Hope, which is as good as $1 million more. And of course, if you want to do through Suez Canal, and I think the fear psychosis is started working on the commercial sector, and I see no end to this at least for next 2 to 3 months. In my
Right.
opinion, we should be ready. The last man buying a can of petrol or diesel or gas or selling probably rice or exporting garments and all that, they should be ready for at least 10 to 15% of the impact on their business, because inventories will go low and
Right.
there will be a time lapse.
Right, that's an alarming situation, and in fact, this only emphasizes the importance of the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that we were discussing a few months ago, that completely bypasses this Red Sea route. Do you think that the government should step up on that, because while the Israel war might be on, Israel and Gaza, there is all the more reason for us to kind of accelerate our, trade through the Arabian Peninsula.
Well, I think somewhere down the line, China and Japan is a bit lucky, because what they have done is, from the Europe side and Russia side, they have taken the northern route, which has just been opened, for the ice class vessels, and it's an absolutely new route. But India doesn't get the advantage of that. Right. So India has planned it out well, but I think what they thought is required in 2040, probably they require as on date. So I think billions of dollars need to be made.
Yeah.
Now the bottom line for the India is, we need to have billions of dollars ready to start this particular corridor, which we thought we may need in 2040, 2050. But right now, the violence index at sea and the geopolitical situations, I think we got to have started it already 10 years back. It's a good idea, and I think it needs to be implemented. That's what probably the governments on the other side also might be thinking,
Yeah, it's a good idea. And in fact, Aditya, that IMEC corridor is pretty much going to be our lifeline in the years ahead, because given the ease with which this very important sea lane of communication has been blocked, do you think?
I think it was quite a setback when the war actually began.
Yeah.
Because immediately after the G20 summit ended at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi, the biggest talking point was the IMEC corridor.
Of course.
Many people all across the globe were talking about how will this be really achievable, and what kind of a productivity and the connectivity will this really bring on the stage. Many compared it as opposed to the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the BRI that China has. But strategically, I think this would have been a win-win situation for India, for Middle East, and for Europe, and of course for the United States as well. I really hope that this actually begins again once the war really subsides in the next few months. But this is, as we have discussed, a long war. I actually believe that this could continue till Jan or Feb, because even today, the Prime Minister Modi has spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu about connectivity and about the maritime security in that entire region. But at the same time, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is very much clear that Hamas will have to either surrender or die. And it seems that there are a few thousand supporters and active combats of Hamas which are very much active in Gaza still.
Right, and that only adds to our insecurities given what's going on in the Red Sea. Thank you very much, Captain Parashar, for joining us, and Aditya.
Thank you very much.
They are the brands we all grew up with. They've been around through socialist India and survived well into liberalized India. They were made in India way before Made in India became cool. And we're calling them the brand families of Bharat. Now, joining me to discuss this is my colleague Amit Ranjan. Amit, tell us more about the brand families of Bharat. What's this show all about?
It's a deep dive into brands that have survived the changing times, brands that have been there since pre-independence times. If we talk about Parle, it started way back in 1929. Have survived the changing tastes of generations, and over the last 3 decades, tastes have changed fast. So many brands have just fallen in the wayside. We used to have brands like Stanrose and Mafatlal. Where are they today? They were the top families.
Of course.
So the brands that we have chosen are the ones that have survived the test of time. It's a case study of how to survive, and even the onslaught that happened post 1991 with the coming of multinational brands.
Right.
And Parle is a great example, because Coca-Cola was one brand that challenged it.
Absolutely. In fact, Parle, the most interesting thing, Amit, was the fact that it was one of the most recognizable brands. The biggest sales it made was during the pandemic. People literally eating their way through Parle-G biscuits during the pandemic and the lockdown.
Pandemic was a silver lining for the Parle biscuit brand. They were not doing well post demonetization and GST. Sales had gone down. During the pandemic and the exodus, they distributed about 50 lakh biscuits free. And that did wonders for the brand image.
For the brand, exactly.
And after that, the trajectory has been just up and up.
It's amazing how this brand has survived through all of this. It's a very simple kind of thing, but I think what do you think is the secret sauce for Parle biscuits? It's the secret sauce.
They have not changed the size of it. They have not changed the packaging of it. They have not changed the way it looks, the crust and whatever, since 1939 when it became a confectionery. They are not just the most recognizable brand in India. the Parle girl is also one of the most recognizable brands in African nations.
Absolutely.
Be it Congo, be it Angola, and we had case studies of that.
Right. And tell us about the splits in the family. I mean, the Parle, it's almost like a OTT series, right? The splits in the family. How
More than one.
More than one.
More than
exactly.
one.
Yeah.
So there was a first generation split in which 4 brothers stayed on one side and Jayanti Lal Chauhan split away. He had 2 sons, Prakash Chauhan and Ramesh Chauhan. They went into separate businesses.
Right.
So Prakash Chauhan today has Parle Agro, which has Appy Fizz, which has Fruity, which has Bailey Water.
Right.
And then there is Ramesh Chauhan, who had Thumbs Up, who had Limca, who had Citra, who had Maaza, and Bisleri.
And he famously sold out to
They
Coca-Cola.
had 85% of the market share in 1993 when he sold it to Coke at 60 million.
Right.
Coca-Cola and Pepsi don't let any third brand survive in any country they're in.
Right.
A place like US, there is no RC Cola, which people said was tastier than Coke and Pepsi. Didn't survive. Double Cola didn't survive. Thumbs Up is the leading brand in cola, in the cola category in India. Even today, 30 years after, Coca-Cola has not been able to kill it.
Kill it, exactly.
They killed Gold Spot, but they couldn't kill Thumbs Up.
They couldn't kill Thumbs Up. And that maybe, you know, in a sense, Ramesh Chauhan kind of miscalculated on that one, because they thought that, you know, Thumbs Up couldn't stand up to Coca-Cola. I remember back in the day, all these discussions, and they said, look, Coke is going to wipe Thumbs Up out. But like you said, it remains, it's probably the ambassador of, colas.
Homegrown brands. One opinion which has come out in our studies and in our episodes also is that probably he planned for the survival of the brand. Maybe if he had to fight the might of Coca-Cola and Pepsi on his own, maybe, and that's just still in the realm of speculation, maybe Thumbs Up may not have survived.
And thanks, Amit. You can watch that story, Brand Families of Bharat. It's part of our Heralding 2024 series, only on the News9 Plus app. Download and watch. Thanks for watching.
Dipping the biscuit in a glass of water and having it as a full stack of 10 biscuits.
Breakfast hostel.
The perfect break, chai biscuit. You know, the Parle-G mascot on the packet is possibly among India's most endearing packaging features. I think the little girl on the Parle-G pack, along with the Amul Moppet, the Amul girl, I think are possibly one of the most definitive icons in in Indian brands. Of course, there are great folklore about the fact that she could be Sudha Murthy, but what I understand, it's really an advertising agency creation of a period when, well before, computer animation came into place, someone created an illustration of a young, a little girl enjoying her biscuits.
Very few brands or very few brand mascot get objectified. Here, there is none of those controversies around particular model, and it has withstood test of time. I mean, nearly 50 years and it is still standing strong.